Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wa bihi nasta'in ala umurina ad-din wa salatu wassalamu ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Friends, Ms. Haji Alami Musa, President of Islamic Religious Council of Singapore, our guest speaker, Professor Dr. Tariq Ramadan, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, and a very good evening to all. I'm Muhammad Hannan bin Hassan, the Vice Dean of Muis Academy, and I will be chairing the session this evening, inshallah. First, allow me to welcome everyone to the Singapore Islamic Hub and the Muis Academy. I see many familiar faces, and for some, this may be your first time visiting Singapore Islamic Hub as well as the Muis Academy. Some of you are seated here, alhamdulillah, but we've got other friends who are watching us live from the training rooms, Muis Academy training rooms. Unfortunately, the interest to participate in this, fortunately actually, the interest to participate in this talk is amazing. We could not accommodate everyone in this room, but I'm sure that those who are watching us live from the MA training rooms will equally benefit from this talk, inshallah. Again, let me welcome everyone to Muis Academy. Those who may not be familiar with Muis Academy, allow me to briefly introduce Muis Academy, or in short, MA. Since its official establishment in 2007, Muis Academy has offered numerous programs and organized conferences, seminars, talks, roundtable discussions, workshops, and has also published its monographs. One of Muis's strategic focus is capacity building, in which we aim to develop dynamic social-religious leaders driven by profound content in nurturing a community that is religiously profound, socially progressive, social-religious leaders who value and are enabled by profound content to effectively manage the social-religious life and deal with the diversity, the emerging issues, and the changing challenges. To this aim, MA plays a leading role and a critical role as the agency to develop such dynamic social-religious leaders in Muis as well as in the community. MA aims to develop religious leaders for the modern world in order to realize this goal. MA emphasizes three strategic functions, as you can see on the slides. It develops leadership capabilities of the social-religious sector. It provides advanced Islamic learning programs, and it shares the Singapore Muslim experiences with other communities of the world as a way to enhance our very own learning, because we believe by sharing we learn. If you look at the slides, you can see some of the programs that MA provides. We provide training courses, we organize conferences, seminars, and public lectures like this evening. We also host international delegates to share our experiences and best practices. Many have benefited from our program. The asatiza, the religious leaders, the madrasa teachers, our mosque leaders, our community leaders, public officers, researchers, just to mention a few. We also work closely with Muis Harmony Center in building our interfaith capacity to enable Harmony Center to meet its desired objective. Now, some of the programs that we have introduced are like Muis Academy's signature event, the Muis Distinguished Visitors Program, or in short DVP. Here we invite eminent international scholars on Islam to deliver a talk and engage our Singapore community on several important issues. The past speakers include the late Sheikh Al-Azhar, Sheikh Tantawi, who spoke about Islam and its place in the modern world, the Grand Mufti of Syria, Sheikh Hassoun. He spoke about Islam's enduring values for humanity. And the most recent one was the Grand Mufti of Bosnia, Professor Dr. Mustafa Tariq. He talked about challenge of diversity in the modern world. Apart from DVP, MA has organized the International Conference on Muslims in Multicultural Society, and as the convener of the conference, Pastor Tariq Ramadan was instrumental in bringing together some 20 eminent international scholars of various fields in this conference. The value of the gathering of these scholars was not restricted to the conference proper, but more so from the side events and engagements between these scholars and the different sectors of the community. Like today's event, we organized public and MUIS lecture. Our past guest speakers include Dr. Karen Armstrong, Dr. Rowan Williams, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Imam Faisal Rauf, Dr. Oliver Roy, Dr. Abdulaziz Shazidina, and many others. We also hosted international delegates and conduct workshops for different interest groups from several parts of the world. These and many other programs are made possible through our close working relationship with our partners, which includes the National Institute for Education, NUS, Oxford University, and many others, as you can see on the screen. Now, last January 2012, the Research Center for Islamic Legislation and Ethics, which is based in Qatar, was launched. CILE and MA have come together in this meaningful partnership. This is a natural extension of our cordial relationship with Professor Tariq Ramadan, who is the founding director of the center. Tonight's talk is a testimony to the good relationship and our shared vision to provide an ethical framework and dimension in the face of modern imperatives, a vision of reform and renewal in the light of the fundamental principles of the Quran and Sunnah and the high objectives of Islam. We have the honor tonight to invite Professor Tariq Ramadan to speak with us on religious ethics and the postmodern world. Professor Tariq Ramadan does not require an introduction. Nevertheless, as a form of formality, let me just briefly introduce Professor Tariq Ramadan, to whom who may not be informed of Professor Tariq Ramadan. Professor Tariq Ramadan is a professor of contemporary Islamic studies at Oxford University. He also teaches at the Oxford Faculty of Theology. He is a visiting professor at the Faculty of Islamic Studies, Qatar, a senior research fellow at Doshisha University, Kyoto, Japan, and director of the Research Center of Islamic Legislation and Ethics, based in Doha, Qatar. He holds an MA in philosophy and French literature and a PhD in Arabic and Islamic studies from the University of Geneva. In Cairo, Professor Ramadan received one-on-one intensive training in classical scholarship from Azhar University scholars. Through his writings and lectures, Dr. Tariq has contributed to the debate on issues pertaining to Muslims in the West, Islamic revival, on theology, ethics, social justice, interfaith, as well as intercultural dialogue. He is also the president of the European Muslim Network in Brussels. Dr. Tariq Ramadan was named by the Time magazine as one of the world's top 100 most influential intellectuals in the year 2004. Prof. Tariq Ramadan's recent publication, published a few months ago, is The Arab Awakening, Islam and the New Middle East. I now have the pleasure to invite Professor Tariq Ramadan on stage to deliver his talk and to speak to our hearts. Professor Tariq Ramadan, please.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you so much once again for this invitation. The relationship with Muiz, with the President, with the Mufti, with all the brothers and sisters that are working in Muiz has been now almost 10 years that we have been in one way or another working together and following the work. I have been following the work that was and is still done here, alhamdulillah. And it's really a pleasure that this lecture this evening is co-organized by Muiz and also Kyle, the Center for Islamic Legislation and Ethics. And we are working together. The director of Muiz Academy is with us in the steering committee. But more importantly, this is not only a co-organization, it's the same vision of institutions, organizations that are working with the same objectives. And I think that this is what I saw when I was here, witnessing the work that is done within the Muslim community and trying to work with within the Muslim community, but also to be connected to the world. So the discussion this evening is an important one. It's an important one when it comes to assess the situation of our world, what we call today the postmodern society or the postmodern era that is a situation where the question of truth, the question of reason, the question of ethics is critical. But my main point, and this is why I think it's an important discussion, is when I was told that lots of people are coming and we cannot afford to have them all here, it means that Muslims and people of other faiths, ordinary people, are interested by the topic or interested by the lecture. And when you are interested by the lecture, it could be two things. Only because you are following what is said on the internet or on YouTube and you are attracted by something which is superficial, or you are interested by the topic, and most importantly, coming to such a lecture, it's for me to send a message that is necessary for all the people who have faith, who believe in God, Muslims or people of other faiths, that we are facing critical times. We are facing critical times, and we can sit in this room and blame the scholars for not doing the job. They don't give us the answers, the ulama are not good, they don't know what they are talking about, our world is more complex, and we sit down and we blame them. And there is another way of looking at the situation. If you are an ordinary Muslim or if you are a believer, you understand that at the end of the day, the leadership is very much based on the way the followers are involved in the discussion. So now, wherever I go, and I met so many people, so many students who are coming from Singapore, from South Asian countries, they are all over the world. They can be everywhere, and they are gaining knowledge. And at the end, they gain knowledge to get a job. They gain knowledge to get some salary and money and income. But the true question is, are they involved in the critical questions of their time? Meaning today, when we deal with medicine, when we deal with economy, when we deal with environment, when we deal with education, when we deal with gender issues, when we deal with psychology, when we deal with media, when we deal with all these contemporary issues, are you involved in the discussion, or are you spectators of what the people are saying and doing? So my main concern coming to give this lecture here is not to talk about something which is far from you who are listening and say, oh, that's all good, that's all fine, good lecture, come whenever you can next time. Or really to translate this into a commitment of minds and hearts towards the human responsibility when we are facing challenges that can destroy the creation and destroy human beings. We have the scientific power to destroy ourselves. We have the means to destroy the planet. We have the means today to chip. We have the means today. It's okay? We have the means today to put our human survival at stake. All the sciences, when it comes to technologies, when it comes even to bioethics, we can now go very far in the knowledge and play with genes and play with all these dimensions. So far that no one could now say exactly and with a reasonable approach, this is the limit we all agree upon, even among the Muslim scholars. So we are facing these times today. This is where we are. And the Muslims are living in this world. Men and women, we are facing this. So we can go ahead and get knowledges wherever we want around the world, but at the end of the day, we are personally responsible of this knowledge and to be involved in the discussion. And we need to be involved with the ulama, the scholars of the texts, the people who have studied the Quran or Sunnah, to ask the questions, share the knowledge, and come to something which is a better involvement in the critical discussion. So there is no way to be a passive believer. Passive believers is a contradiction in terms. It doesn't work together. If you are a believer, you have to be active, and active means intellectually, socially, and scientifically with the knowledge that you can gain wherever you are. So I'm starting this because the starting point of the whole project, for example, that was presented, the research center in Qatar, was exactly this. In fact, the whole philosophy was to say we need scholars of the text coming with scholars of the context and working together. Meaning, we need ulama who have studied the Quran to sit with medical doctors, with economists, with psychologists, with men and women, with people who are specialists in environmental matters, to sit together. And sometimes the specialists are not Muslims. They can be from another faith, but they are specialists in their field. And they work together to come to a better understanding of what are the challenges ahead when it comes to knowledge, and to produce something which is an Islamic understanding of what are the limits. But not only for the Muslims, it's also to share with people of other faiths, because Christians, Jews, Buddhists, people who are following a specific spirituality, they have also answers to some of the questions. And the only thing that we can do is to share our answers and to come together. So this is where your role is critical as ordinary citizens, Muslims or people of other faiths, to come together and to use your knowledge, not to blame the scholars for not knowing, but to ask the good questions to help all of us to come with the right answers. And you will understand why it's critical through my talk. So come and sit in this room or in the other room, not as passive auditors or people who are come just to listeners and to listen and to be listeners, but maybe as active minds trying to get a sense of what could be the challenges in our society. So now, having said that, let me come to the topic itself and try to understand in a simple way. This topic could be very complex because in a philosophical terms, even the definition of postmodernism is in itself a lecture. And the problem is trying to define postmodernism in a postmodernist area means that at the end you don't have an answer. And you don't have a definition. Not one, but many, because this is exactly the essence of the postmodernist approach, is to deconstruct everything that at the end you are lost, even you don't remember the questions that you asked. So I'm not going as far as this. I'm going just to try to stick to some normative definitions and try to come to our involvement when it comes to religious ethics and what we can bring to the discussion today. There are three things that are important in our world today. The first is really the role of reason. The role of reason as the only parameter of what is right, what is wrong, and more importantly, the truth. And what the postmodernist approach is saying mainly is, by deconstructing the truth of yesterday, you get the sense that there is not only one truth, but many, and everything is at the end relative. So, relativity in scientific term, or relativeness in philosophical term, it's ending with this perception that if you come back to human being, you don't really have a truth, you don't have an axis, you have something which is completely scattered, and at the end of the day, the only way you are going to choose should be based on the human reason, because the human reason is the means through which human beings have to choose and to decide. So it's a reality which is deconstructing even religions, deconstructing the philosophy of truth, or the philosophy or the metaphysical approach, and you see how it's already complex, by saying there is nothing beyond what we can project with our reason, which is beyond the perceptions and beyond our reason. So everything is relative to our mind and rational approach. And you can understand from the very beginning that at this stage, and what I'm saying now, this translation is very simple. But from the simple translation, you can understand that from a religious viewpoint, this is problematic. Why? Because the starting point of religion is to say there is a truth. And in Islam, for example, which is the same in Christianity, is the same in Judaism, the monotheistic approach is always saying there is one truth, and the first truth is God. Well, Haq, it's one of his names, by the way. So, the religious approach, by definition, is challenged and is challenging the postmodernist approach, saying that everything is relative. So, there is something here which is a critical question. If everything is relative, and the starting point of this, we can find it in someone who was much before the postmodernist approach. He's a novelist, a Russian novelist, that if you haven't read him, you should. If it's not in your mind and in your part of your culture, there is something missing in your culture, is Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky was saying something which was very interesting and was took by the existentialists at the beginning of the 20th century. He was saying, if God does not exist, everything is possible. Meaning, I can do whatever I want if there is no God. Because if there is God, I can understand that He is expecting from me to do the right and to avoid the bad. But if there is no God, why can't you kill you? The law can just put me in jail, but in philosophical terms, there is nothing that is preventing me from doing bad. And this is where Jean-Paul Sartre, the French philosopher, the existentialist that was following in the footsteps of another German philosopher, Heidegger, was saying, it's true. But he was saying not if God does not exist. He was answering the question. God doesn't exist, so anything is possible. And the true question is this one. When you are shaking the truth by saying there is no truth, there is a very important question which is coming here, is how should you behave? What are the principles of your behavior if there is no truth? You got that? It's simple and difficult. Simple, because yes, if there is no God, if there is no meaning or transcendental meaning to your life, meaning by this that what the Muslims are saying when they are facing a problem is clear, even when they are facing death. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We belong to God, and to God we go back, we return to God. Meaning that this has a meaning. We say life has a meaning, and the meaning is He created us, and we go back to Him, and in between, what He's asking us to do is to behave accordingly. And you have in the postmodernist era someone and philosophers saying that's not true. First, there is no truth. Second, God is not a certainty. And then, how are you going to behave? What are the principles of your behavior? So this is a question that is related to the second term of the topic, which is ethics. And ethics, it's also a term which is complex. In fact, there is another way to talk about ethics, which is morality. Morality, this is the set of rules telling you what is good and what is bad. So, question. Do we have, beyond our respective religions and spiritualities and philosophies, is there a natural moral sense that is inner to our being, that you can say, if you are not a Muslim, if you are not a Jew, if you are not a Christian, if you are not a Hindu, if you are not a Buddhist, there is something in you telling you this is right and this is bad. And the philosophers did not agree on that. Some were saying, yes, there is something which is intrinsically in our nature. And some others were saying, no, it's coming from God. Or it's coming from the society. So you can see here that there is a very big discussion about the source of what is right and what is wrong. So, for example, there is another philosopher who came after the rationalist trend, and he was asking a question. And as believers, if you are believers and you are following a spirituality, you have to ask yourself this question. He came by saying God is dead. It's Nietzsche. He said God is dead. Now there is no God. And then he added to this, he said, why is it not right to say that lying is good? I declare that lying is good, and to say the truth is bad. Show me that I am wrong. Interesting discussion. Are you able, with your beliefs today, to say to someone who is telling you, why are you telling me that lying is bad? I experience every day that lying is good. I lie to this one, I lie to this one, I can take money from here, I can steal from there. Why are you telling me it's wrong? You are telling me it's wrong because you are educated like this, because it's in your heart, it's your society. What is the source of your morality? So, when you are among Muslims, when you are among Christians and people of your own faith, it's very easy to answer this question and say, Allahu Akbar, God is the greatest, and we have the answer, it's coming from God. But when someone is coming to you and say, I don't believe in what you are saying, and I am told that everything is relative, that there is no truth, that there is no access of morality, how do you produce this? I'm saying this because this is where we are in many Western arena of discussion, that it's at that level, what is your source of morality? And when you are facing this, as someone, a woman or a man that is coming with, I believe in God, I'm saying, La ilaha illallah, there is no God but Allah, but I'm saying I should be equipped by an understanding what is said and what I'm asked in this. At the end of the day, what is the source of your behavior? Where does it come from? And you have to answer this not to face the West, but also to get a certainty about your own belief, to get it solid, to get it rooted in something. And this is where, as religious people today, very often we avoid the question because we don't know exactly how to answer. And when we respond to the questions, we are very simplistic in the way we are facing the rationality. Now, from a religious viewpoint, when it comes to the postmodern area, this is what I was trying to translate now. Religious ethics is saying something which is important, and you will find this in all the monotheistic tradition. And it's also clear from an Islamic viewpoint. What we are saying, in fact, there are three sources of morality for us. The first one is, in fact, coming clearly from the Creator. The Creator created human beings with a revelation and a direction. So the first source is coming from the truth, and the truth is God, and He is the first source to give us a direction. This is the first source of my morality. Saying, why do you behave like this? Because I believe in God, and He is what He's expecting from me, depending on the religion I'm following. And there are two other sources that are very important, and especially from the Islamic viewpoint. When it is said in the Quran, فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا. The fitra is the nature, the natural yearning for truth that you find in every single human being. Mircea Eliade, who was studying all the religions, he was traveling around the world, and he said, wherever I went, I met people, they were always asking the same one and clear question: why this life? They were asking the question of the meaning of life, the why. And it's coming from the intrinsic nature, that there is something in our conscience, there is something in our mind that is always asking the question. And then what he was saying is that religion is a component of the structure of the human conscience, meaning it's in us that we need something, we need this answer. And what the Islamic tradition is saying, which is also, you will find it in the Buddhist tradition, in the Hinduist tradition, in the Christian and the Jewish, this is universal, saying, in fact, in us, there is something that is able to distinguish between what is right and what is wrong. And the first is with our language. You will find no human society where from the very beginning it's good to lie. Okay. You will find no society where it's good to lie. By definition, when there is human communication, truth should be the right way to communicate. Because you cannot build interpersonal relationship based on lies. You need a point which is, if you communicate truth, and to say the truth is the first condition of communicating. So there is something which is natural morality. And the third source, of course, is rationality, our mind. Yes, it's going to... We'll use this one. Okay. So, reason is also a source of morality, that sometimes what we have in coming from our mind when we are facing a situation, our reason, by studying the situation, can produce and explain and be the source of our behavior. So three sources: God, Allah, and the book, the revelation. Second, our nature is coming from inside, and in between our reason. Human nature, reason, and the Creator. This is important when it comes to facing the questions of our time, because it means that we are explaining our behavior through the three sources by challenging the whole deconstructive approach of postmodernism. And as Muslims today, with people of other faiths, it's very important for us to get this right in the way we are dealing with our ethics. So ethics can be, in religious terms, ethics is morality. But once again, I don't want to enter. If you have time, you go and read the book, The Quest for Meaning, Developing a Philosophy of Pluralism, where there is a chapter where I'm studying the difference between ethics and morality from religious and philosophical terms. But the point for me is really to come to this understanding the source of our behavior as an answer to what is coming from the postmodernist approach, by saying at the end, everything is possible, there is no truth, so do whatever you want, or you are going to rely only on morality coming from our common rationality. The religious traditions are not saying this. They are saying, no, there are limitations and there are sources that we need to study. Now, last big question before entering into the concrete implementations of all this is that ethics is not dealing with the big why. The big why is known in philosophy is why this life. Why this life? This is going to come from philosophy and religions. Ethics is questioning the small why, is differentiating between knowledge, science, and science is to know how it works, how my body works, how this world, how this nature. So how is the scientific question? But ethics is saying, why are you trying to know what you are trying to know? What is the objective of knowledge? Why? Because it's questioning the human behavior. So you need to know, and we are trying to know how the human body is working, how the world is working, how nature, how the rules of nature, all this. But why are you trying? Are you trying to know how nature is working and functioning to take over nature and to change nature, or to take from nature what is important for the well-being of humanity? What are the objectives of your knowledge? A very critical question. Why? Because you are reaching today, as I was saying at the beginning, we are reaching today a level of knowledge that it's so complex that with this knowledge you can destroy. So you have to ask the question, why are you obsessed to go to know what is happening on the moon? What is the objective? Why do you want to know what is happening in the cells? What is your objective? Is it to save people or to manipulate? Do you want to manipulate and to get this power over human beings, or do you want to serve? So ethics is exactly asking this question. Why do you want to know what you want to know, and what are the objectives of your knowledge, in order to behave accordingly? So we have this from the very beginning in the Islamic tradition. In the Islamic tradition, from the very beginning, we had supplications that was coming from the Prophet, peace be upon him, والسلام, when he was saying, Allahumma nas'aluka ilman nafi'a. Oh God, we are asking you useful knowledge. He was not saying knowledge, useful knowledge, meaning a knowledge that is helping us to worship you, to respect nature, and to remain dignified as human beings. The three dimensions. To love you, to respect the creation, and to remain dignified as human being, which are the three main dimensions. This is the useful knowledge. And from an Islamic viewpoint, it comes from our religion, and it's the same in other monotheistic tradition on spiritualities. In the contemporary era, when you are shaking the basis of truth, of course, this is not going to be the answer. So you are challenging the philosophical lack of basis with something which is based on religious foundations, and you come with these answers. So this is where we are in the discussion, and the only thing that I wanted to do as an introduction is to make you feel how complex it is, and say, oh, I came for a lecture that was going to uplift my spirit, and I'm lost with my mind. But this is exactly the point. The point is, when you see how complex it is, we come back now to something which is, what are the bases of our answers to these challenges? And this is where I'm going to speak from within the Islamic reference, but anyone who is studying his own tradition and religious tradition will find the parallels that we are following on this.